Hi, last night I watched Chimes at Midnight, Orson Welles' 1965 adaptation of various Shakespeare plays, adapting them to focus the scenes on his character of Sir John Falstaff, an aging knight, bumptious and belligerent, who favours alcohol and storytelling over actual battle. The film follows him as he is a companion of young Prince Hal, son of Henry IV, and various escapades, including the Battle of Shrewsbury, and eventually Hal ascending to the throne, becoming Henry V, and cutting Falstaff out of his circle. Um, this was a long held dream production for Wells. He'd adapted a version of the play for the stage when he was much younger and managed to draw together enough funding from various Swiss and Spanish sources in order to make the movie. And later he said that this was his favourite of all his films, that it was the one that he felt was least compromised. It certainly shows the sign of a late period Wells. It has that more fragmented editing style, with fast inserts cut into scenes, partly I think as a result of the choppy nature of the production, having to work around the availability of actors. John Gielgud plays Henry IV and was available apparently only for 7 days shooting. Jeanne Moreau has a significant supporting role but was only there for 5 days. Um, Wells left all of the scenes of himself solo to be shot at the end of the production, as he was apparently nervous about playing the character. I think there might have been some um, neurosis on his part about his appearance on screen. Falstaff is white haired, white bearded, very, very large. And despite his size, Wells was apparently quite self conscious and unhappy about his physical appearance, from what I've heard. So he might have been trying to avoid doing those scenes, or at least trying to put them off. I didn't think this was Wells' best work. I found it was certainly indicative of his later period. I still think, obviously, that Citizen Kane is his best film. But having seen this and The Trial, his previous film, quite close together, I think there is a certain malaise in his work where it's becoming very dialogue driven, very self involved, very um, insular. The Trial, I thought, was far too wordy, far too dialogue heavy. When you're working with Shakespeare, obviously you want to keep the text, you want to try and preserve as much of the wording as possible. But an issue is that the sound recording is not terribly good. A lot of the actors have been post-dubbed. A lot of the cast is inevitably. A lot of the cast is inevitably Spanish because of the production, and so they had to be post-dubbed. Wells himself, blustering through his beard, is often unintelligible. And a result is that at times it can be hard to follow. And despite the fact that the selling point with Shakespeare is the dialogue, it would have benefited, I think, from being stripped back further. It feels like a very long 2 hours, and although it's brilliantly directed, I think the adaptation needs focus and a, a more ruthless attitude towards the text in terms of bringing exactly what Wells wants to do with the character of Falstaff into focus. Um, so it's somewhat disappointing overall. I'm interested in seeing more of his films. There are still a number of Wells films that I haven't seen, particularly the last feature he released theatrically in his lifetime, F for Fake. Um, and I think they will always be interesting. He is always an interesting director, but it's possible that he is not as strong a writer as he believed. Citizen Kane was, of course, co-written with um, Herman Mankiewicz, and I think Mankiewicz's influence was very important in completing the vision that Wells had and working out how to make that fully work on the page before it was brought onto the screen. Without the influence of a writer like that, I think Wells' work is suffering, and you can see that, I think, quite clearly in Chimes of Midnight.